Welcome, one, and welcome all to another exciting edition of the Toku and Anime Night podcast with your host, Astro Titan 94. So, tonight's podcast, we will be talking about, we will continue on with the Digimon arc. Specifically, I'm going to talk about part 2, aka the Etemon Arc, which will feature the Digidestined themselves meeting a new character that will explain everything for the children. Um, a new location, new ability, new powers, and a new villain, and how these children deal with this new villain, and the introduction of another character that will eventually be a part of the series. Also, as well as this, I will also be talking about the new documentary film or documentary coming up, known as Dark Side of the Power Rangers, which is a documentary for Max, that they'll be talking about, and how they handle certain topics like how the actors of the show got treated, um, during their time in the show. Well, during their time in Power Rangers, be it under Disney, Saban, Hasbro, and as well as the life and death of some actors, including the late great Jason David Frank, and appearances from actors such as Nakia Baris, Jason Font, and Kiara Hanna. Um, and of course, will be premiering early April of 2025. And finally, we deal with an unfortunate passing with an actor, involving tokusatsu and anime, who of course was a part of the Digimon and Power Ranger series, as well as various other animes. So, with that being said, we will talk about today's topic, and as always, if you want to see content like this in the future, subscribe is important, and um, I happen to have a Patreon and Coffee. Um, they're basically they're basically, of course, if you want to donate to this channel or donate to this series or any future projects that I have involved, you know, just to improve on technology and various other stuff. Today, if you guys hear things a little differently, it's because I don't really have my microphone. Currently, I need to get a new mic. I mean, yeah, the one that I had stopped working, as well as a new set of headsets, because I technically need to hear what I'm saying at times in these podcasts, just to be sure and satisfied with the quality of the show. So, so if you want to donate to my coffee, it's AstroTide94. Of course, you can donate to me for $3 or whatever amount you want. If you want the Patreon treatment, of course, Patreon will be 3 tiers, but of course, these shows are for free on Patreon to listen. But if you want to, of course, contribute to something involving my projects, yeah, I have 3 tiers. $1 if you're feeling like you don't want to spend much. $5 if you don't mind providing the extra money, but you still want to but you still want to be budget friendly, or $10 if you feel like, of course, doing, if you want to contribute more so. So, yeah. And with that being said, let's begin with today's topic for the video. So, in my previous video, I did talk about part 1. If you want to listen to that one, it's going to be on the YouTube playlist for this one. It's also going to be on Patreon for free. But But of course, I did go through the detail with the, but I did go through some detail now involving this arc. So yeah, so definitely, I won't do much explanation. But long story short, seven children go to another world. They end up getting new creature monsters known as Digimon that they would need to, of course, that they would need in their survival against enemy Digimon that would go after them. And of course their friendly Digimon would evolve into powerful versions of what they were, of course, defeating any rogue Digimon stupid enough to go after them. So yeah, that is literally the arc. Though though there was more to it, and that would be the main villain at that time, Devimon, wanting to take over File Island. But eventually the children were able to defeat him, though at a huge cost, because they did had, of course, Angemon at that time. The children would have Angemon. In fact, TK specifically would have Angemon, but Angemon would end up sacrificing himself in order to defeat Devimon, and of course, the children would, and of course, and in the digital world, no Digimon dies. No such thing as death for the Digimon in the digital world. And of course, the reason why is because if a Digimon were to kick the bucket, if you will, or make an ultimate sacrifice, they would, of course, change into an egg. They would change back into an egg-like state, or a digi egg, and would hatch until later on when, of course, they become like their former selves once more. But this time, and of course, they would still have to earn a lot more power as time goes on. So, definitely, there is that to explain. So, yeah. So, following the defeat of Devimon, the Digidestin would, without question, go through. Well, the Digidestin would, of course, still need to find their way home. So, they would hear like a voice of another wise, different creature, or not creature, an individual who is neither a Digimon, but at the same time, although he looks like a human being, he is not human. He is a being known as Geni. Geni would explain to the children that of course their Digimon aren't that powerful enough, even if they had reached champion, aka adult level in Japan. So they need to find the seven crest and of course the tags that of course will help them house the crest. So they would need it in a time of battle. And of course, the Digidestin would, and of course, in order to get those, they need to, of course, go to the, they need to go to the, they need to go to the continent, to the farther continent outside of File Island, and of course, retrieve those crests. So that way, their Digimon can be stronger and powerful than ever, while also while also finding their way home. So definitely, so yeah, definitely, definitely, this is a new introduction as we have a new ally for the Digidestin within of course Geni. But now, so of course the Digidestin and their Digimon would now have to go to File Island, and they would do so by going through a boat that was actually made by, of course, the Digimon that of course were liberated from Devimon's clutches, and of course some allied Digimon that, well, were part of the casualties caused by the aforementioned Devimon. And of course, they would go straight to the ocean, going to the continent, and of course, they would encounter a Waymon that would attack them at first. But then, once the Digidestined saw what happened with Waymon, and of course, they would they would free Waymon from any of the clutches that, of course, from any, of course, of the clutches Devimon had put in him previously. And without question, Waymon would go out of his way and, and of course, would help the children go to Foul Island, but they would end up going to a convenience store underwater after they were being pursued by enemy Digimon that were located underneath the ocean. And when they did go, they would go to a they would somehow go into a convenience store. And the aforementioned and this convenience store was located underneath the water. I am not kidding when I say that. So of course, Waymon and of course the Digidestined would of course somehow find out that yeah, the crest are actually inside this place. Yeah, like literally it was inside. Yeah, it was literally inside of a underwater convenience store, which is yeah, which sounds crazy, but nonetheless, Waymon would of course help out with the Digidestined and would of course get and of course would provide the Digidestined well with the crest. And and with that they would go to the new continent, aka Folder Continent, and of course the seven children and their Digimon would would arrive to this new place, but at the same time they need to find their crest. Um so yeah, and of course they have to go through and of course they would have to go through some crazy ordeals by finding them in finding them in the finding them in places that were well hidden. And of course what would happen is the tags would and of course the tags would store these crests to the respected individual who would hold the following traits, as I will list them right here and right now. The crest of courage for for those for those of course with of course for those who want to exemplify bravery and courage and honor. The crest of friendship, of course, of course, that of course would solidify, yeah, befriending people and such. The crest of love, which the crest of love, a of course it's a crest that that of course would stylize the concept of love among other people, N- like by any means of love. And no, I'm not talking about like romantic love. I'm talking about like okay, like love between one with a just like platonic love, just regular like love for one another, like kind and considerate towards those out there. Um, Sincerity, crest of sincerity, or as it was called, crest of purity or purity, of course, for which of course the subtitles of the second adventure would refer it to as purity. Um, yeah, literally, the sincerity, of course, was, of course, for those who, well, for those who mean it, of course, in terms of making promises to those out there and fulfilling them. The crest of knowledge. That is actually about, of course, it's about, of course, having having the thoughts and having all the thoughts and information gathered and knowing how to use them. Um, of course, there's the crest of reliability. Um, though in this one, of course, this one is basically for those who actually could actually be depended on even when the going gets tough. Of course, it was called it was called the crest of honesty in the in the official subtitles by Toei for the second adventure, but it was also at times called the crest of sincerity. So yeah, and I'm calling them from their Saban names. So yeah, definitely there is some. So definitely there were a lot of things they had to work on it. And of course, the crest of hope, um, which of course providing a which hope meaning of course providing the what's it yeah providing of course oh providing like a yeah you hoping for a positive mindset or those who yeah the so yeah definitely an expectation for a certain thing to happen, a lot of that. So of course these seven children would each have that aspect to them. Ty would end up of course finding the crest of courage. So yeah, he was the first. So yeah, Ty would be the first to receive the crest of courage. Um, Later on, Matt would have the crest of friendship. Sora, love. Mimi, sincerity or purity. Izzy, knowledge. Reliability. Joe, hope. TK. Um, of course, there are other crests, but I'll talk about those another time. So yeah, and of course when the seven children would receive their crest respectively, they would go through trials and tribulations towards the new villain Etemon, who is a monkey Elvis themed villain, or at least in the English dub, they actually refer to him as an Elvis impersonator. He is voiced by Richard Epcar, who I have met before in conventions, and I gotta say he is okay. I am 5'5" here, folks, so I'm kind of like your average size guy, but Richard Epcar is like, oh my god, he's like more than 6 feet tall. It's like holy. Okay, and I'm not making a note. I am not making fun of the man for his size. But when I first saw him in person, I was like, wow, this guy is bigger than me. Oh my god. And he was the voice of Balto from Ghost in the Shell. A very big dude in his own right. So yeah. In fact, Balto is basically one of my favorite characters from Mr. Epcar. And I'm glad for it. And yeah, ignore that ding sound, that's my phone. So yeah, definitely Etemon is the main villain. For this one, he and his roadies, of course, or groupies of course his like generic goon Digimon would of course would of course encounter they would of course encounter these um these seven children, even to the point where even to the point where Etemon would force Tai and Agumon to a gladiatorial fight against a Greymon that Etemon so happens to have as his slave. Of course, Tai wants Agumon to do his best, not just to do his best, but actually do better. It's like to the point where Tai is like exerting his he's like exerting force towards Agumon to become one of the best Digimon, which would have many of his which would have Tai's colleagues or friends question him. In fact, Matt being one of them, actually having his issues in regards to how Tai treats Agumon. Much so to the point where of course Tai would have his crest of courage, digivolving his Greymon, well, his Agumon, which would be Greymon at that point, to but with a corruption, but with a bit of like dangerous corruption, dark digivolving into Skull Greymon, which happens to be a huge parody monster of Greymon, a grotesque parody of Greymon. Literally, he's nothing but a spooky skeleton monster that, well, while he was able to defeat Etemon's Greymon with ease, it was a berserk monster that went out of control, dis- to the point where he didn't even listen to Tai. He was just like this like angry beast going out of his way, breaking stuff. Doesn't matter, and hell even tearing down ally and enemy alike. It's like, wow, this is one dangerous weapon. And Tai is like, "What have I done? I've created a monster." Which eventually which eventually though which eventually, of course, Skull Greymon does not, of course, last long, and of course and of course he, and of course he ends up, of course he without question would de-digivolve back to his former state, not an Agumon, but a very smaller version of Agumon, um, or his previous evolution. Um, let's see. In fact, of course, his Agumon Tai's Agumon would actually be a Koromon, which is the in training or baby two in Japan. And by the way, I should explain this, by the way, in this one, that in Japan and America, the Digivolutions are pretty different to one another. So I should explain the Digivolutions, how they differ in America and how they differ in Japan. So in America, there are, of course, there are names for it. Um, there is the fresh Digimon, which is actually a freshly hatched Digimon, technically, or as it's called, Baby One in Japan. That is the Digimon that you'll be starting off after your Digi-Egg hatches. Um, in training mode, that or Baby Two is actually the Digimon in a small progress, but is still an infant, though at this point at least has some knowledge on what it's doing. Rookie, basically, it's basically a young form of itself. It's a young form, though it's still, and albeit it has experience, but it needs like, but it's basically kind of like a child form where, okay, the child can walk and talk and play, but needs to learn more. Champion, adult form, which is actually the Digimon in question has turned into a grown ass version of its child form, or is actually a powerful version, a very powerful creature that can take on anyone, but is still not enough. Ultimate, even more powerful than, of course, even more powerful than champion, but it is actually referred to as perfect, the perfect form in Japan, at least. In fact, they refer to it as the perfect form. In fact, so yeah, basically, it's a powerful Digimon an even more powerful, with even more powerful, with even more powerful abilities. But even then, it's still not perfect enough because Mega, or as they call it in Japan officially, Ultimate, that is when it's in its final form. Definitely, it's a powerful Digimon that is hard to destroy, hard to defeat, but easy to accord, but is an easily powerful creature that can really do a watt ton of damage. That is what you need to know about the Digivolution chart. They start as an egg, then freshly hatched or baby one, training, aka baby two, rookie, aka child, champion, adult, ultimate, perfect, mega, ultimate. Yeah, yeah, and yeah, that's gonna be confusing to some, but uh, definitely, definitely it's just more of a regional thing here. As in America, it was just referred to as egg, fresh, um, in training, um, rookie, champion, ultimate, and mega, which is even more. Which, yeah, mega is like even bigger than ultimate. But yeah, and yeah, that's what it's referred to here in America. So yeah, that's all you need to know about the evolutions. Okay, so back on topic, Koromon and Tai would of course be glad that they're with each other, though, and of course Tai, especially Tai, feeling regretful about what happened, and he apologized to Koromon, and Koromon accepted the apology. However, there was one person that was not happy with how everything went, and that was Matt. Yeah, Matt would of course be pissed off at Tai for the mistreatment of Agumon, which, yeah, Agumon was treated like garbage in this one, especially like in how Tai was like pushing Agumon's limits. Which, okay, I know some people should go beyond their limits at times, but you still have your limits. And you can't, and you have to, and of course, when one pushes their limits, it's like they have to do so in a much more determined state. And obviously, like, oh, they're so determined to, of course, get there that they want to, of course, that of course they will even go through their own limits to, of course, get to where they need to, like through volition. What Ty was doing was not that. He was not doing it through Agumon's volition. He was doing this through through Ty's own stubborn nature. His own stubborn nature that really gave the Skull Greymon Digivolution to the point where he went out of it, where to the point where Ty couldn't control his own Digimon. And well, and it almost killed, and yeah, and the creature almost killed everyone. Ally, enemy, it didn't matter. Once you were a moving target of Skull Greymon, that was a uncontrollable berserker destroying stuff. It's kind of like Trevor Phillips shooting up everyone, and Michael and Franklin just so happen to be caught in crosshairs and crossfires of Trevor Phillips's shooting. Like, yeah, if you play Grand Theft Auto 5, Trevor Phillips, the guy's a crazed animal. The guy's crazy. He's out of control. And Skull Greymon too was that. He was a crazy, out of control creature. But of course, this was the only time, and of course, this was the only time it ever happened, for Agumon to digivolve into something messed up. But of course, this one would continue to have Ty, and yeah, this one would have ramifications for Ty because he still, because he would feel guilty about what happened. Then in the next episode, Mimi tries to actually cheer him up, and of course, and of course, Mimi, who acts like, who somewhat beyond throughout their show, she acts like somewhat of a bit of like a rich snobbish girl, but she's actually a very sincere-minded individual. Like, she also cares for people. Like, she's serious about some of the things, and of course she would, and of course though, and of course though, and of course, what would happen later on is that Ty would receive the children would receive another call from Jedi, of course, informing him about the crest, the whole issues with the crest, but of course, Jedi would tell them that, yeah, it depends on how you treat you must treat your crest and Digimon with respect and everything, and yeah, and they will eventually become powerful, because if you don't treat either of them with respect, then they could become dangerous, hideously grotesque creatures, out of control, definitely not, and definitely would not listen to you by any reasons. So of course, Mimi would have to, of course, go through her own trials and tribulations. But of course, she would encounter a giant ass bird known as Kotatorimon. A big ass, like literally a big ass bird with, like a big ass giant bird with teeth. Yeah, like that is like literally that giant ass creature. And of course, yeah, yeah, like a big ass rooster. Fat, a big fucking cock. Yeah, like I'm gonna use that in that context because that's what it is. A big old fucking cock. And of course, what happened was the Digidestined, of course, were having a hard time to defeat this creature to the point where of course, Kotatorimon, or I like to call him Big Cockmon, would have of course the children's Digimon turned into stone until they had to deal with until they had but except for two being Biomon and Palmon, Sora and of course Mimi's Digimon. And what happened was that Mimi's crest of sincerity would activate, and of course what would happen then is that of course what would happen in this one, yeah, what would happen in the episode, well, in these episodes was, well, later on would be that Mimi would be able to defeat this big old giant bird, and well, and of course, digivolving Togemon, and of course, would digivolve Togemon, aka Mimi's Digimon from Palmon, for the Palmon Digivolution, to a much more powerful Digimon known as Lilymon, and would defeat, of course, the enemy Digimon, and thus the children would continue on and on. Some of them would find More of them would find their crest eventually. Of course, Sora would find her crest of love. Joe already had founded the crest of knowledge in terms of that fight, the aforementioned Skull Greymon ordeal. TK would find his hope crest. Izzy would find the knowledge one. Matt friendship. Basically, everybody else would find their Digimon crest, but some of and while some of them, like Matt and TK, the likes of Matt, um, the likes of course Matt, Joe. Well, actually, no, the likes of Matt, excuse me, and of course I think Sora, they would of course they would end up activating their Digimon crest, having their Digimon evolve into Ultimate. So Garurumon, which was Gabumon, would become Were and of course, Sora's Bergermon, which was her Biomon, would become Garudamon. So yeah, we would see later Digivolutions happening in the anime during this arc. But of course Etemon's forces would be defeated once the Digidestined would start knowing how to use their crest. Same with Izzy's Digimon as well. Kabuterimon, of course, evolving it to Mega Kabuterimon, but of course that was in a later episode. That actually, I think that was after. Which actually, no, that's after the whole. That was after the whole Etemon arc. But anyways, though. But even then, though. So yeah, I'm jumping ahead on this one. So of course, Etemon really needs to defeat the children, but there was another person that also wanted to defeat Etemon as well. But but of course, he would lure the children into helping him, only for one of their own to be abducted by this being known as Datamon. And of course, Datamon would abduct Sora, which which following ties yet with which following ties dumb decision that he made, to the point where once again Matt would have to chew him out at times, to the point where Matt has to be the voice of reason for Ty, because Ty just does whatever the hell he wants, a la of course, killing in the name of, by Rage Against the Machines. That one lyric where it's like "fuck you," I will. I can't say. I can't sing the rest of that. I could, copyright. So yeah, definitely, definitely. So yeah, definitely. Of course, Ty would have to change mentalities, but of course would still have to save Sora. Eventually, Ty is able to save Sora from Datamon's clutches, even to the point where, oh yeah, there was to the point where Datamon wanted to, of course, make like a clone variant of Sora, which eventually was defeated, or rather, which eventually, of course, was destroyed. But but in the end, though, of course, Ty. But of course, though, Etemon would find, but of course, Etemon, as much as he thought he was almost defeated by Datamon, eventually Etemon returns, but now even more powerful. Though he found some, though he found a bit of like powerful data that would actually court that would of course that of course would help him out in becoming this dangerous, powerful well, yeah, like another form of him, a chaos form of him. Yeah, sometimes Digimon Digivolutions also have like alternate forms, but they're not, but still retaining the same name. Just that this is the same guy, but in a extra mode, or at least with an extra ability or sorts. So yeah, Etemon becomes Etemon Chaos after fusing himself with the dark network, or that of course he had used with them throughout. And I called it dark web. I apologize, Ty's but this time around, Ty's crest of courage would help his Digimon digivolve. And this time around, though, the Digivolution would be, well, basically a lot more powerful and better, as of course we would see Etemon digivolve. I'm not digivolve. As time goes on, we see Greymon digivolve into Metal Greymon. Um, so yeah, definitely, yeah, definitely, of course. So yeah, definitely, of course, though. Ties Digimon would digivolve into finally something powerful, which is Greymon, but which of course would be another form of Greymon, though without any hideously grotesque skeletal spooky skeleton crap. But rather, he looks like a metamorphed and metamorphed Greymon, with one of his arms being cut off. and would replace with like some sort of cybernetic part, and would have like wings on his back, and of course his carapace would be metallized and would be a and he has and he has and his upper chest or would shoot out missiles. So yeah, and of course, holy hell, and without question, wrecked would wreck Etemon to the point where yeah, they thought to the point where they ended up defeating this the enemy, but but of course, what would happen, unfortunately, is that Tai and Agumon, or Tai and Greymon, or Metal Greymon, would disappear somewhat. Where would they disappear? Well, they would disappear to the real. Well, they would end up in the real world. Um, Basically, Tai would, of course, realize that yeah, he's back in his own. Yeah, he's back to his own world, but and of course would and of course but Koromon would of course and of course Tai's Metal Greymon would of course be much like his Skull Greymon counterpart, de-digivolved back into Koromon. And of course Tai wonders how did he even return back to his world. And it turns out that Tai is actually still in present day world. In fact, Tai would leave. In fact, Tai and his like friends would be at summer camp on August 1st, 1999. However, the children, however, Tai would still be in would return still to August 1st, 1999. And of course, that's when we would discover that the digital world's time is a lot faster than the real world's time. So anytime I'm like talking, yeah, it's like 2 or 3 days past the digital world. So yeah, like goes that fast in the digital world, but here it's like, but in the real world, yeah, it's like slow pace. But we would also see for the first time ever that Tai actually has a sibling with him. Or rather, he ends up reuniting with his sibling. Kari is her name. And she recognizes Koromon. And of course, she has claimed that she's seen Koromon before. And of course, Tai's like, wait a minute. How does she know all of how does she know that Koromon's a Digimon? Or for that matter, how does she know Koromon? And he believes that yeah, she's sick. But and yeah, and of course she really was sick. In fact, Kari had an illness at that time in the episode, or introducing throughout the episode. In fact, when it came down to when it came down to the introduction of this character of Kari, yeah, Kari, of course, had like this. Technically, she did have like this like sickness, but only because but technically it's like and of course though what happened was that and of course what happened was let's see, what was I gonna say, but what had happened is that yeah, once upon a time like of course she wanted to still play with Like she still wanted to play with the other kids around at that time, but of course she was like very sick, and that's when we discovered that of course she technically has well, she does happen to have like this yeah, like of course from what I've heard in the English dub, she has like pneumonia, or but it's more like a very like powerful fever that she would often have, if that of course would get her easily sick. Like being around in the heat, she would get easily sick. But eventually though, but of course though, but she'll appear later on in the later stories. But for now, Tai and Agumon, or Tai and Koromon, of course, um, they see, of course, Tai and Koromon see like, okay, suddenly other Digimon had made it into the real world, and of course, Tai would have his Koromon digivolve into Agumon on and attacking, and of course, attacking the Digimon, but but of course there would be like a portal that would open up, and of course Tai and Agumon would of course leave, but of course Kari doesn't want to see her older brother leave, but Tai really needed to leave because of course Tai knows that the digital world in question was in danger, to the point where his friends were trying to make contact to him earlier on, but the message was kind of cryptic. So of course Tai would go back. So Tai and Agumon would go back to the digital world, and of course, little does and of course though, and unbeknownst to Tai and Kari, there happens to be another Digivice inside of their apartment, where Tai and his sister Kari live. So yeah, hinting in something very interesting. And with that, that ends my story. By the way, I apologize, folks, in advance, but yeah, I forgot that the other Digidestined have yet to digivolve their Digimon to Ultimate. They would discover their crest, but would still nonetheless beat the other Digimon of Etemons. But in the end, though, Tai would still have Greymon digivolve into Metal Greymon, and would still nonetheless kick the ass of of Etemon Chaos Mode, and well, would even have a brief, but of course would also have a brief reunion with his younger sister back in the real world, and realizing, and of course also us discovering that yeah, the digital world goes goes a lot faster than the real world in terms of time. And so with that, I conclude this discussion of the first adventure, of the second part of the first adventure. The next episode we will cover the third part, where this time everybody else's Digimon does eventually digivolve, and we see more of the Kari character. So yeah, but but that's not the end of the show just yet. In fact, there's another topic I want to cover. So, Power Rangers, of course, is having their aforementioned revival in terms of the toy line, and yet again, we're going to be seeing the first season once more, but in AI rendered. But, 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 we will also be seeing this year this year for us as Power Rangers fans, we will also be seeing a documentary, though not made by Hasbro or Playmates or anyone who used to work in Power Rangers, um, but of course, HBO Max or NID, of course, who is ID, you ask? Um, they're the same people who does Max, but ID technically is the investigation discovery. So yeah, definitely it's a premium show, or it's a premium channel of sorts that does a lot of documentaries and stuff. So there will be doing a new documentary. So there will be a new Power Rangers documentary on HBO Max and ID that will be a part of a series of shows known as Hollywood Demons. Um, which, before you ask, is not okay like a scary movie of sorts. It's actually a live doc. It's actually a documentary show. It's like a documentary series that talk about like the dark side of Hollywood actors and everything else. They tackle some very serious and dark topics, which I'm gonna warn you guys. They do tackle about certain certain dark aspects, like okay, like some celebrities dealing with mental health issues, and of course and of course some celebrities having very painful vices that, oh man, yeah, like we don't want to see our favorite celebrities doing or dying of drug overdoses or ending their own life at a very young age. Yeah, it's a very dark and murky topic about these kind of dark side stuff. And of course, the Hollywood Demons series, they're they are going to be doing a Power Rangers show later on April 7th, 2025, which at the time of this recording it's March 12th, so we are less than 1 month away from this show or from this documentary. Um, this one is known as the title of this Hollywood Demons episode is known as Dark Side of Power Rangers. They will be discussing some things involving what happened in the Power Ranger series behind the scenes, such as, of course, and such as, of course, like why some of the original actors had left the show, and I'll talk about that later on when I'm discussing season 2 of MMPR. In fact, following the Digimon series, or following my multi-parter of the Digimon show, on my discussion of the first adventure, I will of course be talking about season 2 of MMPR, because I do want to still talk about Power Rangers, folks. But, 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 but of course, I'm gonna save some of the particular topics for later episodes. But if you must know, some actors having to leave the show due to personal issues with Saban or how they were getting paid at that time, and as well as, of course, one of the actors leaving due to very discriminatory comments made towards that individual. And as well as this, they'll also talk about other topics like the Power Rangers curse, which, let's get this out of the way. As a Power Rangers fan, I do not believe in such a thing. In fact, some people say that whenever an actor that does something bad or they die, suddenly it's like, oh no, the Power Rangers curse had done it. But it's not even that. I mean, there have been celebrities and actors that have done the same things or have dealt with the same situations as the Power Ranger actors have done. In fact, if anything, the Power Rangers curse is nothing but it's nothing more than a stupid it's not stupid concept. It's literally just it's literally just a very shitty it's just a total shitty theory that of course was made by some people who probably have way too much time in their hands. But in reality, and of course in reality though, it's not really that. I mean, there's no such thing as a curse. In fact, if anything, these actors just deal with the same problems as any actor would in real life. And I'll talk about the Power Ranger curse at some point in time, or well, then again, probably not at the same time. But regardless, it's a very crazy, obscure, and stupid theory that all of a sudden some people believe that the franchise is cursed or unholy or something bad happened because of the actors. But in reality, it could happen to anyone, including you. All right. All right. It's got nothing to do with the Power Rangers series as a whole. So yeah, they might tack. So yeah, the dark side will but dark side of Power Rangers, the episode for Hollywood Demons will actually talk about that kind of stuff. But in addition, they'll talk about as well as the passings of some of the actors, or some of the actors having to go to jail due to or prison time due to unfortunate reasons that happened in real life. I mean, Rick Medina going to jail back in 2015 following what happened with him and his roommate to the point where I don't want to talk about this in look, I do not want to talk about this topic in detail, but he killed his own roommate. And yeah, people claim it was in self-defense while others just think he just committed an act of murder, but I'm just going to say he did spend some time in prison until 2020 when he was released. Of course, he was pardoned by Donald Trump at that time, and yeah, during his final days of his first term. But and of course, and I'll refrain from talking about politics, especially with what's going on right now with his second term. I'm going to refrain from political talk at this point. But yeah, and as well as what happened with Jason David Frank. Um yeah, from that one yeah, from some of the from probably some of the issues that he had with other celebrities and fellow Power Ranger actors, such as with his beef with Austin St. John, which happened a long time ago, and yeah, and even by the time and even before Frank's passing, people thought that yeah, the two still didn't like each other. But again, I'll try not to talk about it as much in detail. But then there was also that other incident where yeah, as well as some incidents that Frank had with at some conventions. In fact, from that one person that wanted to kill him in back in 2016, but but was arrested before he could even do anything because well, maybe you shouldn't say that he's gonna kill. Maybe don't say that you're gonna kill someone on social media. All the way, but Oh, and that's not the only issue. Oh yeah, that's not the only thing they might talk about. They might also talk. I mean, they could talk about other stuff involving Frank, but the one topic that will obviously be spoken about was it or will be Jason David Frank's passing back in 2022, which oh boy, I mean that's gonna be yeah man, that's gonna be an unfortunate discussion now because yeah. Um I don't and yeah, and of course yeah, and when Frank passed away that year, it just felt I mean, I'm only going to say this. I was very heartbroken at what happened. I mean, I was I was devastated to hear the news of his passing. I mean, and yeah, and and of course, and the thing about Frank is that I never met the guy in real life. I never met the actor, but I was always somebody that liked him. I actually liked the guy. He was actually one of the coolest people out there. There, in fact, my cousin at the time, who I practically share the same age as him. In fact we are in our early 30s. Me and my cousin, though he beats me by a few months. My cousin and I, well, actually, no, my cousin and his, of course, then girlfriend, who's now his wife. Um, they once upon a time met Jason David Frank, but not through a convention, but through one of Jason David Frank's charity events. And I was like, man, I'm glad for my cousin that he met him. Unfortunately, I did not have such. I didn't. Sadly, I was unable to meet Jason David Frank. And back then I wasn't like and before and back then I kind of and back then I didn't even go to conventions as much. In fact, the only time I ever went to a convention back in the 2010 was back in 2015 when at Comic Palooza, but even then I didn't go to meet anyone in particular. But but when Jason David Frank passed away back in 2022, though, I mean, I was heartbroken to see what happened or heard about what happened, and yeah, and I really wanted to meet him back, and it was a thing that I always wanted to do. I really wanted to meet JDF, but unfortunately, I never got the chance to meet him. And what happened but years later I was able to meet his daughter Jenna Frank, and she's kind of without question she's a nice person. And you know what I don't and you know what I've heard like disgusting comments about her saying that, oh yeah, Jenna Frank is responsible for the death of Jason David Frank. No, she wasn't. I Let's get that out of the way. When did she play a role of his death? That never happened. Okay? Jason David Frank loved his daughter. She loved his father. What? In fact, whoever made those comments was clearly, was clearly so, they were clearly just thick headed. In fact, what the hell were they? In fact, I don't know what kind of person was that, but it sure as hell was not a good person. Let me tell you that much. It was probably some stupid, ignorant person who thought otherwise. And yeah, I did met Jenna Frank, and she was actually good people. I don't know what people have. I don't know what the hell was wrong with some people online saying that, oh no, she was responsible for her dad's death. Like, fuck no. Fuck no. Like, where do you come up with such ideas? Tell me. When was that a thing? Sure, they might have had their sure. Jason David Frank may have had his issues with his family at times, but of course but of course that did not but of course that's not enough for somebody but that's not enough to be but that's not the reason why Frank died. But again, it's just stupid ignorant people online that say stuff like that. Let's get that I'm sorry if I took long with that rant, but seriously, I don't know what people were thinking. I don't know what kind of person thinks that. I don't know who in their right mind thought Jenna was to blame for Jason David Frank's passing. Some people also said it was her wife, and some people said it was like other people in other people in JDF's family. But in reality, no, it was none of that. Jason David Frank was going through some mental troubles, not caused by anyone. In fact, do you think a busy man doesn't? Do you think somebody as busy as JDF doesn't go through mental struggles? Because let me tell you something. A lot of people go through a lot of busy people go through these kinds of things. And that's not an opinion, that's a fact because you've had people who've gone through these kinds of issues. And unfortunately it ends in a very tragic manner. And Robin Williams was also Robin Williams would suffer similar issues. Um Similar hardships. Same with other actors. It's kind of that. But yeah, other than that though, this Dark Side documentary of Power Rangers will be they will mention Jason David Frank in his life and death. Nonetheless, just to get back on topic, and as well as this, we will also see the likes of Karen Ashley, Nakia Burrise, Jason Font, Kiara Hanna, excuse me. We're going to be seeing the likes of them and probably any additional actor in this documentary. Will I watch this documentary? I might, but would I talk about this documentary? Probably not, because I don't really feel like talking about like the dark side of Power Rangers documentary unless I truly feel like I should, like through my own choosing, and talk about like my honest opinions about it. Well, probably I should. Probably in terms of in terms of relevancy and all that. But you know what? I'll decide whether or not I will. If I do, okay, I'll do it. But if I don't, then I don't. Then I'm not obligated to make that documentary. But or I'm not obligated to talk about the documentary. But nevertheless, it is not. Other than that, though, it will be a very tough episode to watch if you're a Power Rangers fan. Just to let you guys know here and now, it is tough as hell to watch. It'll be a tough documentary to watch. You know, expect to cry. Expect to cry on these in some of these things. Just I mean, and yeah, just expect the fact that you're gonna cry in these doc while watching this documentary, because oh my god, there's just a lot of things that they'll talk about, most of which will not be for the faint of heart. So yeah, um, of course, Hollywood Demons' is Dark Side of Power Rangers episode will premiere on April 7th, 2025. Um, so yeah, yeah, definitely, definitely, yeah. I mean, would I watch it? I mean, I might give it a watch, um, but yeah, um, whether or not I'll talk about it is up for my own choosing. But just for but for right now, just let's just get this out of the way. It's going to be a very tough documentary to watch if you're a Power Ranger fan. Um, because they talk about the serious topics involving what happens behind the scenes and how some of the actors were treated in a way, and how production issues as well, and as well as some of the actors going on to, and as well as some actors either passing away due to unfortunate circumstances, or or some of them going or some of them having to do stupid things. And I bet you some people, and I bet you they're also going to talk about uh, that that one person, the that Skylar person, yeah, the that one person who said he was a Power Ranger actor for one episode. Skylar DeLeon or DeLeon. Um, yeah. Um, they'll probably talk about this person, or they'll probably talk about this one as well, maybe, but maybe they might not mention this person because, but yeah, but in all truth though, it will be but yeah, like the they might talk about it, but who knows? But obviously they might not. But obviously they might not. They might. But who knows? But honestly, I could say is that, well, Skyler. Well, even if that he claimed that he appeared only in one episode, which, if I'm being honest, one episode meaning who the hell cares? If you were in one episode, it doesn't mean you were a very popular character. You were just some one off, and that was it. But anyways, though, but yeah, expect. But yeah, like I said, Dark Side of Power Rangers, the Hollywood Demons documentary will be on April 7th, 2025, in on Max and ID. So yeah, ID being a premium channel, Max of course streaming. So yeah, I mean, I might give that a watch, but whether or not I'll talk about it, I mean, let's just try. But regardless, let's try to at least stay strong here, folks. We do love Power Rangers, but let's also accept that in rea- that there that yeah, there was also some stuff that happened behind the scenes that, well, we wish it never happened, but and nor do we condone such actions. Like, if you ever meet your favorite actor, just yeah, if you ever meet these actors, let's just try to be respectful towards them, because in the end of the day, these guys were humans. At the end of the day, these guys are human beings. Excuse me, they are human like you and me. So let's try to treat them with respect, okay? Um, and yeah, and unfortunately, I have to speak yet another sad topic that I want to get out of the way. Dave Mallow, an actor who is well known for Power Rangers as Babu, throughout the Mighty Morphin series, and was a very well known recurring actor throughout the Saban eras of Power Rangers, as well as Digimon's own Angemon, which I did speak about Angemon and the Digimon First Adventure. Um, David Dave Mallow has officially passed away. Born in 1948, um, he actually went on to do. He actually he actually did a the Mallow, of course, did. Um, the guy would, of course, have his acting career in the 80s. He was also involved in other stuff. Other like networks, WGN in Chicago. Um, Mallow would pass away in the year of yeah, he would pass away this year at age 76. Um, yeah, definitely. The guy had been on hospice care or host, um, which of course, which the which of course I'm gonna look up that, which of course is a type of care, which is a type of compassionate care provided to individuals who are in their final stages of terminal illness. Um, of course, it just focuses on comfort and quality of life rather than attempting to cure the disease in question. Um, so yeah, definitely the guy, Mr. Mallow, of course, definitely was terminated. Yeah, so definitely Mallow. He was technically he was yeah, he was, of course. The guy was on medical. Yeah, the guy had a medical. Yeah, the guy had like the medical health issues. Of course, Dorothy Fawn, somebody who, yeah, Dorothy Ellis Fawn. Of course, somebody who was married to Tom Fawn would confirm of his passing. Um, yeah, and of course, Dorothy actually is somebody that did work alongside with, with Mr. Mallow. Um, yeah, definitely, it's a very, yeah. I mean, it's kind of a very depressed. Yeah, I mean, I apologize if this week's episode is got very depressing stuff to talk about, but I already mentioned about the whole Power Ranger documentary, which was really upset. Which, yeah, but that's only because, of course, they will talk about something. But only because they will be talking about something, of course, in regards to the franchise and its issues. But the passing of a human being such as Mr. Mallow, somebody who actually did bring characters to life during his time in acting, yeah, that's another thing I have to talk about. So yeah, on behalf of my family, on behalf of my friends, people, everybody that on behalf of my you know, especially to you, my fans, yeah, I would of course like to just say that my deepest condolences go out to his family, his friends, his colleagues, people who, and people who definitely have loved this guy's work. He will be missed, and of course, um, Of course, yeah, and of course, we'll do a moment of silence at this time. Okay, and yeah, so once again, Dave Mallow, um, 19, of course, he passed away on this year, March 11th of this year. Of course, he will be missed by his family, loved ones, colleagues, everyone. Um, so yeah. So now I'm gonna end this video off with my closing comments. In fact, yeah, and again, I apologize if the later parts of this episode became a little bit more tough to talk about. But I have to talk about what I have to report what I saw at times, or at least talk about my opinions about some of these things. But let's try to at least let's stay positive here for a minute, and yeah, let's try to at least go out of our way, and let's my closing comments will be this for tonight's episode is let's see well my closing comments on this one will be um the other um so yeah, like I basically will say like I as someone who has loved tokusatsu and anime, I mean, a part of like besides the fact that I would like to cosplay as some of these characters or am currently cosplaying as some of these characters because in case you guys follow me on other platforms, I do cosplay. In fact, I have done some Yu-Gi-Oh cosplays and I will debut my Digimon cosplay in a later date. But without question, I definitely will say the following, and I will say this. Definitely, yeah, definitely, um, definitely, I would not mind trying to I would not mind doing my impressions, or rather, to do my own spin on some characters from shows or animes in terms of like voice acting. Because apparently, one time when I was in college, someone like a fellow student actually once said that, "Hey, I actually had the voice for an anime voice actor," which at that time was like fight. I was going through like a fucking like I was going through like a cold apparently that day, and this was like in the early 2010s. And you know what? I wouldn't mind doing this kind of like I wouldn't mind doing like an anime voice acting because like holy shit, like or at least like try to do like voice acting. Like I wouldn't mind giving it a try. Which honestly, a lot of the people who I've met in previous conventions happen to be voice actors. You know, your Erica Schroeder's, your Dan Greens, your Greg Abbeys. Well, I did met Greg Abbey once upon a time, but this was before I even thought of doing YouTube as a whole. Although I did open this channel back, and although I did open my channel in 2022, I had yet to do anything content wise. I mean, I did, of course, interacted with some people here and there, but Valentine's Day, that was when I started doing videos. But at the same time, I wouldn't mind doing like YouTube content, like maybe to try to do like voice acting and stuff. I've also have, of course, uploaded some duel links, like some duel links duels, featuring some characters. Um, which I tend to do something which is more like okay, which definitely without question. I don't mind, which I would not mind doing like let's like gameplays of sorts, but not like okay, like what I did with Duelist of the Roses. As great as I did those at one point, I kind of felt like yeah, I got tired as time went on. And if I were to ever redo Duelist of the Roses, apparently no. Like if I like, yeah, like no way would I have like my old save from a long time ago. In fact, that save has since then been like it's been deleted since then, and a lot of the videos as well I used to had were also gone. So whatever I had then and there on uploaded on YouTube, that's what's going to be, which is why I put like this huge canceled thing to indicate that I'm no longer going to be doing videos of that one. But I don't mind. But at the same time, I would not mind doing more content on my YouTube channel and on other content. So those will be my closing comments for today. So yeah. So so thank you guys for tuning in to another episode of the Toku and Anime Night podcast. Hopefully, hopefully I'll get this uploaded throughout the day, later on in the day, well, throughout later on in the week. Um Next time I will go and talk about part 3 of the part 3 of Digimon. So we're almost there. I would like to talk about the which will be the Vandamon arc or the Myotis Monarch, and talk about how the kids would deal with yet a new evil. And of course that Kari child. Like what will she be like, is she gonna still be a part of the show? Or if better yet, what the hell what was that what was the Digivice doing at her own home? Did Ty forget this Digivice, or did somebody had another Digivice? We don't know. But until then, next time I will talk about such things and also talk about other news and updates as well. Um so yeah, and with that being said, my name is AstroTide94. I hope you guys are having a great day or night. And as always, as always, to close my videos out, have a good day and please be kind to one another because the world does need more kindness, especially in these tough times. All right? I'll see you guys next time.